Back at the station here. All right, so trying to pretend to be productive. It's been a rainy, dark day. I did a fair amount of errands today, but I did some plotting and planning on my endeavor of building a ideal backpack. Now, the thing I want to sort of talk about a little bit today, I can pull up the image here. I'll pull this up and point the camera at it because I did some research online for models that had aspects that I wanted to look at. So that is sort of what we're looking at right now. So what do we got here? These are some of the inspiration. Can we get it aimed at the right screen? There we go. There we go. So these are some existing models of backpack that have side or side access capabilities. And these are ones that I'm interested in reproducing. The thing I noticed interested in here is this right now, but I'm thinking about this as each one of these is a shoulder strap. If I connected these two in the middle, that might be a way to do it. But I actually like this shape. Instead of orienting them this way, orienting them this way, and joining them essentially, it would be this side to this side on my back. If I did that side, and then pocket, and then there's a pocket across the top side for this one. So you'd have a pocket that's half the bag on one side here, a pocket that's half the bag on this side. On the, I'll put this back up on the monitor. But basically you'll have on the bag, when it's oriented like that, you'll have a full back pocket, a front small phone size pocket, a e-reader or tablet sized pocket, and then a front pocket that can hold like a wallet or other small items for doing stuff with on the front. And so it's like 1, 2, 3 in front, 1 in back. And if you double that and put it on both sides, you'll have, I think I'll probably do that front, that back pocket would be laptop sized and could go either side, but have the two little phone sized pockets on either side, the two little tablet sized pockets up front, and then an up front pocket that gives you access to a small front one that could hold maybe a smaller tablet or something. And the thing about that design is that's going to give you a very small and compact bag that'll cover the lower lumbar portion of my back. But there's also this design over here that I'm interested in, where the side opens not in just a slim zipper, but what I'm also thinking of is if you look at this design here for where it measures on his back, if you double that around the back, this is an oversized, I guess we'll call it a fanny pack. I'm sorry to those of you in other countries. We'll call it a bum bag, I guess is the way you refer to it. But so this would be a lower back that gives you a whole chunk of space in the upper back to do more with. And I think that's where this style bag could come into play. Because if you did this lower half of it is 2 of these smaller bags in the lower half. And then the top half of the bag is the rest of it being more like this on a smaller scale. I think that would be the ultimate bag design for me, I think, because it would cover all the potential uses I could have for a bag like that. Hopefully you stay put for now. But so my thought process on that was really just kind of like, I think that's the idea behind what I'm doing. So what I want to aim for right now is seeing if I can make a mock-up of that three pocket design with a big back pocket between, and three pocket design on each side with a big back pocket. And that would be the lower half of the bag design, and see if I can just figure out whether or not like that back pocket needs to be one giant pocket, or if it can be two on, one on either side, like the design has one there. And then based off of that, I also want to figure out whether or not when I combine them, do I want that front pocket to be two small pockets on each side, or do I want to actually make it one reach through it all the way through? And if I do that, that would give me, so if I do like the back pocket being one and the front pocket being one, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pockets just for the lower half of the bag shape. And because it's an over-the-shoulder strap design for that portion of it, it goes over the shoulder, around the back, around the side, like a messenger bag, pretty much. If you design it that way and you keep that strap orientation like that, the distribution of the load is going to be across the body rather than straight down, which works better, I think. If I do this as a strap here, I might have to do a strap, and then a strap across the back. It may be a pair of X'd straps, and if I do that, I might have to do like almost like a 5-point harness for like race cars, where it's sort of like the X in the front with a buckle that clips. And so to get in and out, you just hit the button, pull them apart, and take a shoulder out, swivel it to either side. And I think that's actually not a bad approach to doing that. If I'm doing the X across my back and across my chest, I'll probably want it to be a higher orientation on the chest than in the back. And the space in the back that's covered by the Xing of the crossing of the straps, I'm probably going to want to use that as the back. And well, I need to figure out where those straps cross and the space above them on my back where I can put the second portion of the bag with the side open. And like, do I want to make it modular? Do I want to make it possible to remove that second portion? Or do I want to even just make a basic design that hangs low on the lumbar portion of the back and doesn't cover the upper back? That may not be a bad approach to do it. I have to think about that. And now I'm thinking about the possibility of, could I do this in a vest design? Where instead of straps, it's a collar and button down the front. And oh no, that makes no sense. Not if I want to be able to take one arm out, shift it, and get access to it. That's right. All right. Because I want to be able to get into it without taking it all the way off. So no, I have to do this as a non-removable pack. And that means making it possible to get out of the shoulder strap easily. All right, so looking at that design again, across the middle back like that, that design tends to, that's interesting. That design tends to have the one half design sort of stops just to one side of the spine on the flat edge of the pack, and then the angled edge with the zipper in it that lets you do the tablet or laptop pocket. That one's angled for the strap to go around your rib cage, essentially, to the strap that goes over across your chest. I feel like if I did that, if I followed that pattern, when it's oriented in that way, it looks like the strap comes in around like a harness under the arm. And if that works that way, the other strap would be going right alongside the spine on down the middle. Now I'm thinking if I did a strap support that ran up the middle of the bag that worked for both sides of the bag, I could do a sort of a there's sort of like a gun holster harness that would go over the top of the shoulder rather than crossing across the chest. So it goes over the shoulder and has a cross beam across my shoulders in the back, from the middle of which can come down that middle support. And that way I can have both of those bags on my lower back. A vertical support, basically a T in the middle of my back between my shoulder blades, from which I could hang at the tops, the central portion of the middle back portion. So I think that may be the design I want to work with. That makes a much longer bag, and it makes it's a thinner, low profile bag design. Might make me look a little hunchback at some point. But I also sort of, like, I'll have to try it on when I make one, a test fit, because I feel like backpacks that I've had in the past, the weight is on the shoulder, and the lowest portion of the weight tends to either be at the back of my rib cage, or the straps pull on the front of me and the bag hangs down to the top of my pelvis in the back. So you either have it hanging loosely and pulling you backwards, or hanging high and heavy up top. And this design, I feel like, is going to distribute the weight over a broader area and cover top to bottom in an easier format. Now, the thing I have to worry about is, where is the location that I put things like my laptop? I would almost say it makes more sense to put that in the lower lumbar portion of the bag, because if I do that, it's not putting the heavier object at the top of the bag. So I think like the top of the bag is going to be something like a book or a tablet of paper and some drawing or art supplies. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to what I said this bag was going to be used predominantly for. But the more I look at it and the more I think about this, the more I'm starting to realize that this offers so much space for keeping all the things I want to have on me while I'm doing stuff, that this could very well be a bag that meets the needs of everything I could use it for. We'll have to see. Like, I may be over optimistic at this point, but I also have a tendency of being able to make small bags seem to hold more than is physically possible. I usually joke with people that that's my superpower. And it's just like, I used to work in a kitchen, and they're like, here's the entire salad bar. We want you to make it fit into this mini fridge size space. And I was the only one who could ever make it all fit in one space. Everybody else would have to, get what they could in there, and they'd have to get one of those big trolleys, the size of a separate mini fridge, put everything else on that, and wheel it back into one of the walk-in coolers in the back. And I'm like, I got twice as much, sometimes 3 times as much stuff into this cooler that anybody else could. And as superpowers go, that's kind of lame, but I've got a superpower. So, like, looking at this bag in the long run, if it holds as much as I can imagine it might be able to hold and distributes the weight well, I could do a whole lot with just this one bag. And I gotta go look at. I feel like size limits for laptop bags and carry-on bags on planes, and see what the data is for them. But I feel like this should easily fit that profile. I also got to think, like, when I do like the back portion of the thing for the laptop, I may want to put in some rigid supports so that it's not a soft thing with a breakable screen on one side. So I may put in some reinforcements on that, and I may do a cuff, like a Velcro cuff, to hold the charger. Like, if I wrap the charger up into a bundle, just being able to cuff it in right above the laptop when I put the laptop in, I think that makes the most sense. I might want to run a line from the phone pockets, like a little opening, or even like almost like a channel, like a piece of fabric with another piece of fabric stitched over it and a hole at either end, so I can run a charger up through it. So one could be a rechargeable battery, and one could be phone. So one pocket on either side. I did kind of say at one point I was looking at possibly doing a compartment for food. I may still want to do that. That'll probably be something that goes in like the top portion. I'm a little anxious about that choice, though. A top portion food container above a bunch of electronics really makes me a little anxious. But I think form factor wise and shape of the bag and what it's meant to hold, I do think that makes more sense. Okay, so that's basic outline of what I'm working on right now, shape-wise, I think. I will say I spent a little bit of time playing around with the idea of, like, could I make a flat pack kitchenette, like travel kitchen for a camper kind of situation? And it's just one of those, like, oh, I bet you if I did this, I could do that. And, like, yeah, let's focus on the first part, though. Let's work on the part we're working on right now. It's like, it's one of those things. My brain, when I tell my brain, like, oh, well, yeah, that's a difficult project, it goes like, yeah, but I think it can solve some of those difficulties. So the puzzle of figuring out how to solve a difficulty, my brain loves that portion of it first. It's like, let's do what we're doing right now. Like, if I had my druthers, I'd spend the entire day puzzling out all sorts of different things, and it'd be cool to actually at some point, I don't want to do an intern, but like have an assistant at some point where I was like, okay, well, here's an idea. These are the things I'm going to need to do to try it out. And like 2 hours later, after playing around with another idea or so, the pieces to actually make a prototype would magically appear. That would be really nice. But yeah, so the design on that, and looking at that's roughly the shape design I want to go with. That front pocket being side open versus top open, I may think about that a little bit more. But side open makes it easier to access when I pull it around on the side of me. And when I do that, Its doubled size makes it actually a very low hanger. So if I pull it around and it's sort of at a level to be at the bottom of my rib cage with this strap, the lower half of it is going to get down to a couple inches above my knee, roughly. So it's going to go from rib cage to knee in dimension. Well, not quite that bad. And I think I can streamline it a little bit. Tighten up the dimensions a little bit to make it work better. Yeah, so if I do that, do I want a top open flap? I feel like my answer needs to be no, because at no point is that something I imagine I'll be using a lot. But maybe I'll think about that. Okay, so if I do food pockets or a food space on the bag, that could be in that top portion from either side. And probably in thermos containers, sealable so that they don't leak, keep the temperature well. And then the flaps that open to access those food containers will have additional things like forks and whatnot on them. And a few other little pockets or pieces on that. I feel like the compartment that the food should go into should also be protected in some way. And then maybe that top flap can hold some minor additional stuff. And that front pocket on the lower portion of the back, I might extend that up the front of the upper part of the bag to tie it together a little bit better. And give a nice, big, even central front, central top, food behind them, and then underneath of it, the 6 pockets on the sides. And the central top portion has the open on the flap and a small thing to hold a few non-square amorphous objects. Turn it sideways, top opens on the side, 2 food containers and maybe a space underneath that for something, and then the sides for each one, and then each compartment on the lower portion of it. And the side door for the top portion has, I feel like doing more like the webbing, that the customizable rubber band, it's not really rubber band, elastic straps that you can overlap that'll hold different things in them. It's like making a basket weave out of a stretchy material. You can pull out one of the loops, slide in a flashlight, and a Swiss Army knife in another one, and a screwdriver, and all those little things just snap into place with that. Zip them closed in a piece of netting so that they don't slide around too much, and zip those closed on the sides where the food thermoses are and something else underneath. I mean, like, I think that would get me most everything I would need for like an everyday carry bag. The bag after that, I think, would have to be the carry-on, and then the stow baggage, I think, would be something maybe after that I think about. I feel like if this bag does as much as I think I can get away with doing, Like I could swap out the food containers, the two thermoses, and one of them could be the microphone stand. So I could take this whole microphone or another microphone setup, a portable one I can take with me, like a Rhodes mic, and a tripod, and maybe even like a ring light or a collapsible stabilization rig, and make them fit in those compartments for the thermoses. And like that, I mean, right there, it takes care of most of my camera and travel and interview video shooting needs. So I think that gets almost everything taken care of. I have to go back and relook at my list to see if I'm forgetting anything. Like there's always going to be that one thing like, oh, right, I didn't take that into account. Like that lower portion of the bag, it has the big back portion for the laptop and the charger for that, the iPhone and an e-reader or something like that, the external hard drive, the audio recorder, all could fit pretty much on one side. A GoPro camera and my point and shoot camera fit on the other side with space for like the lav mics, the backup batteries, the chargers, and like what else am I gonna need? I mean, that would do most of what I need it to do. And I could probably even tuck in the smaller of the tripods in there. And then the top portion of the bag, a larger tripod, a stabilization rig. It's just like, I'll have my laptop, I'll have a phone with me, chargers, backup batteries, like that'll take care of everything pretty nicely. And then still have room for a few more things. So, and then like after I look into that, like I have to consider like a little padding towards the back maybe, so that it doesn't bang against my back or have sharp corners that stick out, but also have like a more rigid, sort of like a book cover, like the hardback cover of a book in that back panel, so that nothing can bang against the laptop and damage it. But that's not a significant change to shape or volume, and I want to make it so it's at least moderately breathable. And then on the outside, I need to look into a material that'll be sort of like water resistant, so water will bead off of it and just not get inside of it. And I have to figure out the right way to do the zippers so that they're also sort of protected from the elements. And I don't know that I have to worry too much about super cold temperatures, because like you don't want to leave your stuff out in cold temperatures anyway. I mean, if it's on your back, it's going wherever you are. There's not going to be a lot of times where I'm going to have this thing strapped to my back for 48 hours in freezing cold temperatures. I'm not going to be in freezing cold temperatures for 48 hours. I'll go into a building. I have at least a little bit of common sense. So it shouldn't have to worry about thermal protection too much. May want to watch out for external heat sources. So when I do go trekking through the desert, I don't want it to absorb a lot of heat. So maybe not black, but I don't want it to pull in a lot of heat and bake whatever on the inside. And I also don't want it to overheat from anything charging or any of that going on inside of it either. And I do want to consider potentially running some channels to run charger cables to a chargeable location inside the bag. I don't think that adds too much to the bag, really. I don't imagine I'd be charging more than 2 to 4 things at any given time. and half of them would be chargeable by USB cord. Honestly, let's see, 1, 2, maybe 3, well, 2 to 3 USB ports and maybe 2 wall outlets would get everything I would normally use while traveling charged in an hour or so, I think. I'd have to look at some of my, yeah, I think my knockoff GoPro is a USB charge. My point and shoot camera is a replaceable battery with a charger, and the charger is a wall outlet charge. And my laptop is a wall outlet charge. My audio recorder is a USB charge. My phone is a USB charge. So 3 things on USB charge and 2 on wall outlets for the most part would take care of it. I do have a secondary point and shoot camera that I could take with me when I'm traveling, and that one would use battery replacement charges too. So I may have to swap out those chargers on a strip if I have 2 ports for it, because I wouldn't necessarily be charging both of them at the same time. But I'm not sure if that one actually also might have a USB charge port. It might. And if it does, then I don't have to worry about it as much, because I can just plug in a USB hub and use it to charge off of a power outlet. I thought about seeing if I could include like a foldable solar power array, so that it would, but those, like, many of those are like, that's a neat idea. It's going to take 12 hours to charge your phone. Like, yeah, it's not worth the time. That's a trickle charge. That's a real slow charge. I don't know that that's a viable method of doing that. There's got to be better ways to do that. And like, just charging a backup battery should be what I need for most of it. Yeah, I mean, I think that meets most of the needs I have of a bag. Now, the question I have with some of those pockets is, do I put additional pockets in those pockets? Like the zipper open pouch, so you can access it from the outside. If you say on one of the lower ones, when you pull it around and you open it up, that's the pocket that holds your e-reader and say like my audio recorder and a lav mic. Do I make a separate pocket to keep each one of those things in there, almost like a belt holster inside the main pouch, so that nothing's just bouncing around inside that pocket against each other? I mean, I might just do that webbing approach again too. Just, that might just make the most sense. It's just a couple of modular strap attachments that let you put whatever you want in that location. Lets me change the purpose of the bag each time I go out with it. So like if I load it for the flight with my laptop and some of the electronics I need when I'm doing stuff, that's for the flight. When I get to wherever I'm staying, I can unload everything I don't need, put in the things I need to go do whatever video shooting I'm doing at the location, and leave the rest of it where I'm staying for the evening or the afternoon or whatever. So I'm only carrying what I need with me at the time. And if I do that, like, that bag is going to be largely empty for much of it, unless I make a distinct plan about some other things that I need to think about. Like food and stuff like that can be slipped into the top where other parts are taken out. I might want to make it adjustable so that like when it's packed, when it's full on packed for full travel, yeah, when I went on the plane, I went through the checkout line, the security line, and you just take everything out. It's not a big deal. As far as the X-rays go, I didn't have any problems. What I did with my bag when I traveled was I had one gym bag, and my one gym bag had an expandable side and the regular side, and I packed all of my clothes like I was going to a warm place from a cold place. So when I was traveling, I wore my warm clothes, which took up more room, so I could collapse the expandable side when I was traveling. And as I did that, inside the bag, I had folded up everything I needed just about right to fit the main portion of it, and anything else I needed to, I'd squeeze into the end caps. And then I took my laptop and I just tucked that inside on top of all my clothes, and it made like a flat spot on the top, and it was a very, very tight fit. But it made one bag I needed to carry with me. But inside of that bag, I had a secondary bag, like a roll-up, small, easy carry bag. And when I was no longer in the airports, I was looking to see if I got it around me right now, but I don't. When I was no longer in the airports, I would take out that secondary bag and put my laptop and a few of the other things in it, put that over my shoulders, carry it that way, and then hold the remainder of my luggage as just a gym bag. That's much more easy to carry. And that was a really easy way for me to do that. And if it's possible to build this bag in a similar fashion, where when it's loaded, everything fits in it, but when it's underloaded, when it's not carrying all that, it compacts a little bit. In order to load it out fully, you can expand it a little bit, but when you're not loading it out completely, it compacts enough into a smaller form that's easier to travel around with and do stuff with. I think that's a design feature I may want to keep in mind. How I would do that with the design I'm working on right now, I'm not quite sure yet, because I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to get the top and bottom half of the design together. Because I'm not sure if, like, in the design that I showed on the screen, that lower lumbar portion of the bag is a self-contained horizontal laptop pouch. Now, if I do the phone, external hard drive, audio recorder, and e-reader, and something something, and then the front is something something something, and the front extends further up towards the top, and then in the top portion of it you have the side opens with food, water, tripod, such and such, like a stability rig, and then maybe like something in between the two parts of it, and then zip those up. On the flaps they've got small pockets for small objects. You close those things, and maybe I could set up a couple of mesh sockets to put the two thermoses, one for water and one for food, on the outside too. I don't know. And then the top of the bag opens into something roughly the size of a small purse that somebody could store a few simple essentials in. But if I do all of that, the thing to keep in mind is in the lower portion of the bag, it's 3 layers of pouches in front and one big pocket in the back for the laptop. If I do something similar in the back, there's that whole back portion that's another laptop-sized compartment to put stuff in. And so it's like, that's a whole area that I can just slide a panel into of something, a tablet for a watercolor papers, and a case of watercolors and brushes and whatnot. That would fit right into something like that. I could do that. And like if I do that, there might be the seam between the lower portion and the upper portion. Do I make it one large panel with just stitching to connect it to the rest of the bag? Or do I do separate compartments and make it potentially modular so I could take the whole top portion of the bag right off and just have the lower lumbar bag? I don't know. And I'm thinking about I know enough people in like the military that there are sorts of carry. I wouldn't call them a pack, but if you have a lot of spare magazines or stuff like that, there's like an X harness. It goes over the shoulders, X is in the back, and then it goes to essentially something that girdles your middle. And that girdle is what they use to support extra magazines and stuff like that, and some of the arrangements over their vests. If I took a design similar to that, where the lower lumbar portion of the bag can stop at that same point, you can just strap it around here, and it would carry most of the small things that you want, and then you have a top portion of the bag that connects to it and expands the carry capacity to a full backpack. That's a possibility of something I could do. How would I make that connection? I'm not sure. And that's a design feature that I have to maybe tinker with and explore. That may be like where I was talking yesterday about the possibility of doing a roving jack bag and an inspired content bag. Like top portion could be roving jack and the bottom portion could easily be inspired content, because most of what I would need to do this could fit in that lower portion of that bag. And the top portion being like a whole little toolbox of artsy craftsy stuff, that could easily meet all my needs. And that may be the way to go. And if I build it right, and I'm going to say like an airport, and I don't want to have this strapped to my back. Well, to be fair, if I'm going through the airport, I'm not bringing most of my roving jack stuff. There's a lot of metal, blades, hammers. Like, they're not going to let me go anywhere with that kind of stuff. So I just I won't be bringing that to an airport. But just to carry the idea a little bit further, if I put together the whole backpack as a design that I could use for multiple purposes while traveling, and I have a carry-on luggage, then the idea of being able to take the bag and somehow secure it to the carry-on luggage, have wheels on the carry-on and a handle so that I can just basically put the backpack on the carry-on luggage, so it's all one really big case that I can wheel through and don't have to wear as I'm wandering around the airport. That would be ideal. That's one of the things I saw when I was around the airport, is a lot of people had those square cases on wheels with the extendable telescoping handle that they could wheel behind them as they're carrying it around. And a lot of them would have it like a backpack where they took the shoulder straps and crisscrossed them in a way that when they fed the telescoping handle through it, the bag was strapped to the handle. And so it was just like a larger, longer bag. So they didn't have to wear it around the airport. They could just have it one longer bag. And then when it came time to check or check into the plane, the carry-on bag that went into the overhead was the wheel bag. The backpack was the one that went into under the seat and held their laptop. And they checked any other luggage. And I'm like, if I did that, that's not a bad design way. If I could design those bags to connect together in a way that form a larger, longer bag for easier storage and transportation, that's a feature I might want to include. And then checkable luggage would just be something the size of a small to medium cooler that I could just have on a roller or something and check it and not worry about it. I don't know that it's going to be anything that I do a lot of worrying about anyway, because I'm trying to think, like, I went to Hawaii with a gym bag for 7 days. Now, to be fair, when I travel to other countries in a year or so, whenever I can make that happen, I'll be gone for 2.5 to 3 months, maybe. So probably June. Well, I might spend some time in late May through June, July, August, and get back in mid to late September. So it's going to be 4 or 5 months maybe of travel time. And if I do that, yes, it's more than a week, but there's no part of that week that I can't just redo with what I have. Like, all I have to do is do a load of laundry. We reset. We go get new food at the grocery store. Like, everywhere is going to have food. It's not like I'm going to Mars. I'm not going to have to pack everything. Well, I might have to pack some of the things I need to eat while I'm traveling because I can't eat everything. But, like, food, water, every place I'm going to go is going to have something I can do for that. Clean clothes, a place to stay, and the equipment I need to do the job while I'm there. Like, I don't know what else I would need. And there's always the possibility that if I hit a point where, like, oh, I ruined this piece of clothing, or like I ran out of clothing and I haven't been able to go somewhere and get a load of laundry done. Grab a t-shirt and a pair of shorts at a thrift store or a tourist shop. You're good. All done. Solved. So, like, I can't imagine I would need a lot of baggage for travel like that. But, like, the lower half, the lumbar portion of the bag design, I think it meets so many of my needs. I have to really try it out first before I can definitively say that, like, I don't know that I need more than that. And if that's the case, the modular design of an attachable top that extends its carrying capacity is nice, but I may just end up using the middle portion all the time. Just like slide it on like a vest and you're good to go. Yeah, that's probably going to meet most of my needs. I like the idea of making it separate from the top and I can take them apart. I'll see how it feels. Like, one of the things I say with multi-use items like that sometimes is, like, I've had a few of those encounters with, like, look, it's a ottoman when you're not using it, so you can sit on it or put your feet up on it. But if you do this and you unfold this piece and you raise it up like this and do this, it's a table you can sit at. It never becomes a table for me. It's too much of a bother to do everything I need to do to convert this into its secondary function. Like, it'll find a primary function and then that's what it does from now on. I rarely do transforming things. It's just, in my life, like, do one thing for me and do it well, and that's all I need you to do. Don't do anything else. And so, like, the idea that I'm going to spend the time trying to figure out and unfold a bunch of things to make a thing do a thing, I'm not as likely to do that. But that's usually for places where I live or things like my car. Like, during the second half of my second trip across country, there was definitely a point where I kind of, like, I can fold down the back seats, lay out a sleeping pad, and curl up and sleep in the back, which will be flat and almost like a whole bed. Or I can get out, get into the back seat, and in a slightly uncomfortable, crunched up sort of way, sleep. I just did the latter because it took less work. I still got 8 hours of sleep each night I slept. I was good. I didn't need to fold and unfold whole sections of my car for 15 minutes while I prepared to go to bed at night. Like if I needed to get up in the morning, I got up, I got out of the back seat, I got into the front seat, and I could just go driving. Like I didn't need to convert anything. And that's usually the way of like spaces that I'm in. But I'm trying to remember like backpacks and carrying space for things. I'm a little more able to play around with those and convert them and use them in new ways. I think that's a little bit easier for me to do. So it may be something I could easily convert. I don't know that I would do it regularly. I think it would be more like I was saying, if I took this bag, say I go to Oahu again, if I took this bag and it had most of everything I needed in it to get on the plane and travel with, then I get to where I'm staying, I would then convert it where I'm staying into what I'm going to use for the rest of the week. And then next time I get back to the plane, convert it back to what it needs to be. Like that makes a little more sense to me. This daily reuse and reshape, I don't think I would do very much of. I would almost at that point make a second bag. Like, oh, well, yeah, I'm just going to go do this for about 4 hours, so I'm going to use this bag instead of this bag. It just makes more sense to me. All right, so that's sort of my thought process on this right now. I'm debating whether or not it makes sense to do a. I was thinking of doing a paper mock-up. So use some paper and do like a test run of the design and the shape and the dimensions, and just get a feel for that before I go out and get some simple fabrics that I can then stitch together the way I need to do a more formal test run. Because paper's cheap. I can recycle any failed pieces or cut-offs or whatever, and it doesn't cost me anything to go like, well, no, I want to trim here. Oh, I liked it better the other way. Let's make another one like that and do that. And like once I get the basic sense of the dimensions, it's not as flexible as fabric, which is a limitation, but I may do a paper mock-up. And then after that, what's today? Today's Monday, so maybe a paper mock-up by tomorrow night, and then see if I can get a fabric trial by maybe not Wednesday, but Thursday night. And that seems like an achievable. It seems achievable to me now. We'll see how it looks the rest of the week. I still got a bunch of stuff on my plate. I think this is a good place to call it. We're almost at an hour tonight. So I will see you tomorrow and have a good. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know. I do need to do some other work though. All right. Good night. If it was important, we'll come up to it by tomorrow. Take care. All righty.